Well, hello gardeners, welcome back. So we are in Vero Beach, Florida, my backyard yet again, and I want to share with you guys 3 unsuspecting suspects? No, I'm not sure if that makes sense. 3 plants that I have put into my garden amongst all of the plants that you guys see here that have just become my true favorites. And I want to share with you guys why. And that way, if you're thinking about incorporating some fun things, hopefully this will help. So I'm going to get started with sharing my very first one. So this plant here is a Dieffenbachia, also nicknamed Dumb Cane. This is the camouflage variety. I absolutely love it. And you guys can probably guess why. I mean, look, I've got such dark features on both sides. And I love the way that these guys just draw your eye. I mean, instantly, even from sitting up on the deck. I mean, looking back here, they really just almost add like a little punctuation in the garden. And I love how they do that. Now, growing up, these guys were a staple in my living room, bedroom. I mean, sometimes I would even see them in the bathroom. My mom put them everywhere. They're the perfect houseplant. They're tough. They don't get pests. They're just an overall tough plant to have within the inside of the house. But I last year put them into the garden, and I'm so very in love with them. Now, I wasn't quite sure how the camo would do when I read online. They stay kind of, mediocre in size, so I thought they would work here. But as I'm seeing them grow, I realize they're going to be phenomenal in the rear side of my garden. So I'm going to find some holes for these guys to go into because they do this fantastic big leafed kind of look, and I think they're going to get into that 4 or 5 foot range, and they're going to be in a phenomenal backdrop. So that's kind of my goal for these guys as they mature. So even as a landscape designer and learning new plants and trees and what works well in the garden and what doesn't, you don't always know exactly where to place them. So I thought they would stay smaller longer, but I'm already seeing within the first year how much growth we're getting. So I realize that they're going to go towards the rear side of the garden more. And if you notice, that's exactly what I've done with a few of them back here. So I've got some Dieffenbachia and some Aglaonemas back behind this tree, knowing that they're going to cover the wall in no time. So I've corrected my mistake as designers do, and I'm going to see how they're going to do in this little dark corner. So if you guys have a dark spot in your garden, somewhere that you've got some really cool crotons or some deep tone colors, because that's usually what works in those dark spots, pop a couple of these guys in there. Let it brighten. Let it become a flashlight in the garden because they're one of my favorites. When I look back here, I'm like, oh, hello, ladies. They're just so cool right here. So, and then the second plant of choice is kind of a similar plant, but let's walk over here. This is my Aglaonemas. And they've got a couple different nicknames. Of course, Chinese evergreen is a common nickname, and these are the silver bay or diamond frost, or it depends on where you get them, what the name of them are. But I just absolutely love this silvery leaf and the coloring in the middle with these dark greens along the edges. It just looks like they're painted to me. But one of my favorite things about them is their ability to just do well in every environment. I have them in the inside of my house in a very dry area, dark area, and they're doing very well. And then I have them in this spot, which is a little bit more moist. The irrigation hits it. You can see from this pole here, this is where the irrigation hits it. So this area stays very moist. And in China, they're more of a bedding plant. So they're a fantastic clumping plant along the ground. So like a perfect ground cover, like burl marks, like Sanchisia. They're a lot like that, where they'll just kind of take a spot, clump and fill out. So you're not constantly having to trim this plant to make it fill out. It does it on its own. So anything that saves me a little bit of time and is pretty as a bonus, it's an ideal plant to work with. So I will tell you, I have noticed when you're getting this plant, it depends on what nursery you're getting them in. Be very aware that it doesn't have what they call a cage right around the root system. So it's a little plastic cage that happens right around the root system because a lot of people put them in pots in their house. So that cage kind of keeps their roots restricted and kind of helps them become more of a small overall plant. So if you have that, cut that cage off of the root ball and then plant them in the ground. Even if you have to go to the point where you have to rinse off all of that soil and then plant them, they'll do just fine as a transplant like that. They're just super non-fussy, which is what I like about them. I've had them where they get too much water, they get too little water, they love it both. So I love what they do. And then there's not that many plants that can grow in such a dark spot in the garden and still keep their bright coloring. I mean, this is pretty much like a rainforest right here. We have multiple tree canopies overshadowing each other, and even the quarter lines, you know, fight for a little variation in color, and these guys have not lost it a bit. So when they can do that, I think they're fabulous, and they're very, very easy to propagate. You just take one of those canes off and you move it into another part of the garden, and it does just fantastic. So these have been in the ground, just for point of reference, for about 2 years. So I've really just kind of, you know, want to see how they did with a little bit of cold temps, with our summer rains, with the constant humidity in the air, and they have handled all of that. Even when my antilus right next to them got bugs and infestations where I had to treat those, I didn't have to do anything to these guys. For whatever reason, they've just been really overall tough for this area. So, and then again, anytime I find a plant that I love, I move it around my garden and add it to. So I just kind of take my knife here, and then I just separate the cane itself from it, a nice hard cut, and obviously a nice clean blade. This one I've been working with all morning. So and then you just want to separate those roots, and then you can pop it into another section of the garden, and then it'll clump out for you. So even if you're taking one cane with one stalk, it'll produce pups and really become a thick and chunky plant. This is 3 plants right here, and oh gosh, over the 2 years, they've just done just that. They were a good size when I brought them in. They were 7-gallon size, but they have clumped out and multiplied, I would say wide-wise, by additional 5 or 6 feet, which is just what I was looking for. So if you're looking for a bedding plant that's just going to really take hold and fill out, then they're a phenomenal plant to choose. So these are the Silver Bay Aglaonemas, and then my other favorite is the Aglaonema Marias. We'll pop over there and I'll let you guys take a look at those, because those are going to be near my 3rd favorite plant. So, but as far as the Aglaonemas go, these are my 2 favorites, these guys and the Marias. They just have such a great look to them, and they both clump together super well. So anyway, let's pop into our 3rd favorite plant of the garden. So just before we walk to the side garden, you guys take a look at these guys filling out in the back side here. I'm in awe over how much those couple plants have done such a gorgeous job. Now that would have been naturally just a mulch bed. Nothing to it, nothing interesting. It covers up the base of those cat palms, as those cat palms to the back have gotten some size to them. And it's the perfect bedding color back there. I love how they're non-fussy. I have to do very little to them, and they just kind of fill out and chunk out and become the perfect bedding plant. So you guys, we are now on my side yard, and these plants here are super slow growing, super low maintenance. So if you're looking for a plant that's just going to stay right where you put it and do what it's told, then the heart-shaped variegated ficus is an ideal plant to work with. I mean, the charm. I mean, if you don't love the plant just because it's cool, I mean, the little heart-shaped leaves, I mean, don't they just get you? I'm in love with these plants. So I planted a handful of these in this kind of curved fashion here, and they were a good distance apart, so they've filled out quite nicely. And I have done maybe 2 trimmings with them, which is, I mean, that's all you can really ask for as a gardener. Just not having to constantly come in and shape and trim and clean plant groupings. And I think that these have just kind of made this side section exactly what I needed it to be. Now, there is not a lot of water in this area. I have a drip line that feeds this section, but it's kind of minimal, so I knew I needed to go with something like a ficus that didn't need tons of water, and that also wouldn't outgrow this area. I wanted this as my walkway to be my backdrop here. And then I wanted something with a little bit of a highlight, because this isn't a very lit area. We're in the middle of the day, and this is about as much light as it gets. So a bit of filtered light is ideal for these guys. Now, I say that, but I have a nursery who's really testing them in the full sun, and so far, I mean, the readings are they can handle more and more sun. So I'm going to take some propagated cuttings here and pop them into the shade and start kind of moving them around the garden and kind of seeing how they're going to do with full sun, because when you find a low maintenance plant that offers you color, you want to see how many places it can go along the garden, and we just want to use it everywhere. So what I have done it's done some small clippings of some of the stems, and I almost hate to show you guys this, but because they've not really kind of taken off yet. It's been about now maybe 3 or 4 weeks, and I popped them into these little planters because this is a very protected area, and those stems have lived and caught. So I'm seeing growth on these guys, which I'm super excited about. So propagating them is incredibly easy. I mean, just look at how much I was able to put into a little spot. So I'm going to kind of be monitoring them over time and seeing how they're going to do, just to offer that bit of variegation, because it is so hard to find a plant grouping in a dark spot that really offers you really good color and holds that color without too much light. And I think that's what these guys do. I think they're charming. I think that the leaf heart shape is ideal. I think the fact that they stay compact and small pretty much on their own makes them a winner chicken dinner in my book. These guys have been in the garden for almost 3 years. I planted them at 3-gallon size. I've nipped them very, very little, and this is kind of what I have to work with here. The leaves stay shiny, the color stays good. And we have really filtered light for them to work with. So I am anxious to kind of report back with you guys on what they're going to do when we have more sun to share that kind of look. I think that the variegated heart plants, the Dieffenbachias and the Aglaonemas are amongst one of my favorites when I look at my whole garden, because they do a common thing. They stay where you put them, they grow super slow, and they chunk out without you having to kind of keep that, that trimming to keep them full and thick. So it's hard when you need a bedding plant to stand out. We have all these great, gorgeous species in Florida that get big and tall and really become the focal points. But sometimes what we're missing is the most important part, is that bedding, that tropical thickness at the bottom that's really going to offer that kind of kind of jungle vibe. So if you're looking for a great bedding plant, they're fantastic. And I'll be sure to list more and more as we come on. Burl Marks is one of my favorites. You guys know that dwarf alocasias is another favorite. I mean, there are so many, but these are, I think these would be perfect for new gardeners, because if you're in Florida, just because of what they offer, just like I mentioned, they're just a tough, easy care plant. I am going to quickly show you the Maries, because we're over here, the Aglaonemias Maries. I just think that they're going to create a nice big bunch of color. So I planted them earlier in the year, and they're doing really well. They're flushing out. They're a little slower growing than these guys here. So these are recent plants. These are the Silver Bay or Diamond Frost, whichever you prefer to call them. And the Marias are ideal for just being kind of more vertical. These are chunky and wide. These are a little thinner grouping, and these kind of stay chunky and fat. This is a very new planting, and they're just taking off. And I mainly did this planting of Aglaonemas because in the back, I'm so thrilled with them, and I wanted to kind of see how they're going to do in this particular spot, because we get a little bit more afternoon sun as that sun hits around the corner of the house. So I wanted to see if we're going to change color variations, or if we're going to have any burn or any kind of issues. And so far, so good. I'm really, really happy with it. This burn that you see here, this is from the nursery. I actually picked these up on clearance because I wanted to see how they were going to fit this spot, and I just needed to fill the gap in there. So we're really gonna get a good test in this particular spot. So we'll see how they do. So in homage to my mom, of course, I love to put plants and trees outside just to see how they're going to do. Sometimes they do fantastic. Sometimes they crash and burn. But I did end up putting an Aglaonema Silver Bay in this pot, and I'm absolutely in love with it. I mean, look at this white stemming on this guy. It's been in this pot for a little over a year. I mixed him in with a few other variegated plants just to give them a showstopper. But look at that white stemming. It's about time to start taking some cuttings from him. But I just love it. This is an area that just pretty much gets rainwater and maybe a little bit of water as I think about it. But oh my gosh, you guys. So whether it's in a pot or whether it's in the ground, they do so fantastic. Now, I will note, I do have one inside my house. I actually have it hanging on my wall. I'll get Bryce to pop in a picture of what that looks like. But it is, it's in an area, I feel very bad about saying this, but it's in an area that gets no water. So I walk by this area all the time, and for whatever reason, forget to water this grouping of plants on my wall. And it never lets me down. Every time I look at it, I think, oh shoot, sorry, I'll be right back with water. And that's exactly how it gets watered. It gets watered like every 3 weeks or so. And I know I shouldn't even say that, but it's so happy. It's beautiful. It hasn't grown a ton, but it is always upright. The leaves are just absolutely stunning. So, you know, as an indoor plant, as an outdoor plant, I have no bad things to say about the Aglaonemas and what they offer, because what a gorgeous variegated species for a variety of different applications. So now you guys know why the variegated heart ficus and the Dieffenbachia and the Aglaonemas are my favorite of all the plants that I have in the garden. I feel like I shouldn't even say that. You know, it's like choosing between your children. But, you know, if I were to share with you guys what are tough, tried, true, can make it through a lot of different, you know, applications and also, you know, aren't too much maintenance, those would be my top 3. And it was a very big surprise to me, considering they're truly indoor plants. So I thought, if they were a surprise to me as a landscape gardener for 25 years, I'm a landscape designer and I do projects all through the Treasure Coast, Space Coast area, and yet I use them very little actually in gardens until now. So this is like their big reveal. This is like, so you future clients, you guys know that I'm going to be incorporating them in gardens because I am super happy with how they've reacted in my gardens. So if you guys have a favorite that you put in your garden and you absolutely love it, you just kind of want to go back and buy a million of them and incorporate them in your garden, then please list it in the comments down below, because I love how this community shares all their gardening tips, and it really just kind of helps us all create that gorgeous, you know, tropical jungle that we're looking for. So please share it down in the comments down below. Also comment True Gardener, because you true gardeners made it through the video. I appreciate it so much, and it makes me smile and Bryce smile every time we see a true gardener. So if you guys like what you see here and this is kind of your vibe, this is kind of your style, then I will put our business contact down below. We are a landscape design and installation company, and this is the kind of spaces that we create. You know, this is the kind of look that we're going for all of our clients. So please reach out to us. I'll be sure to list, I'll be sure to list everything down below. If this is your style of video and you like this video, then check out my 5 favorite palms. Oh my gosh. I go in detail about the staples that I put into the garden. As a landscape designer for all these years, I have been through the gamut of different palms and plants and trees. Check out this video here. It'll tell you all about my 5 favorite. Thank you guys so much for joining us today, and I will see you in the very next video.